how would you describe the relationship coming back from just getting back together? Now having a second son. We were like maybe like a year in.
Okay. We just came out of a bad season. We were ready to restart, and this was the perfect time for us to restart
Mhm.
because we had already gone through the process of learning a little bit about what we can do better going into this next season of reconciling our marriage and trying this family thing one more time. We moved to a completely different apartment. Like it was a refresh, like a whole 2 hours away from where we lived at recently. Um, so I would say yes, that was the strongest point coming back. Right now in our relationship, I feel like we're at the strongest. Obviously, our
Mhm.
communication, everything's aligning. We're here. We see the vision. It's clear. During that time, about a year ago, when we first got back together, yeah, like that was where the things were starting to move. It felt like we weren't getting too angry at each other as far as misplacing it. Our heads were leveled. We were ready to actually become this family that we've always dreamed of. And that's what we started working towards, which is why we're here today. So I will say yes, during that time, in moving into now, very strong. Even with some of the things that we went through at that time, not to just go on a tangent, but,
Mhm.
Zoe getting sick, even being pregnant with our Zayshawn, our third son, even him being sick, and the doctor saying that he would have some sort of spinal disease when he was born. Let's even touch on some of those things. Like you were pregnant at the time,
Mhm.
and our son Zovaya has a seizure
Mhm.
while you're pregnant, and the doctor is telling you, "Oh yeah, by the way, the baby that you're pregnant with, our third son Zay, he also has a high chance of getting the spinal disease to where his bones may not grow the way they should." How were you feeling as a mother during that time, knowing that your oldest just had a seizure and your son, who is about to be born, may not be able to walk?
I think we had like no choice but to like fall on each other
Yes.
in these moments, and that's probably like the hardest thing. Obviously we come together in prayer
Hmm.
through everything that we've ever been through. Like we go straight to, what is God trying to do here? Like what kind of work is this? Like why am I being sent to the hospital? Three instances that I would say was first living in that apartment. Zai was only like 1.5, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I remember being at home and going to the bathroom and just bleeding out.
Hmm.
And I'm like, damn, like I think I'm having a miscarriage,
Hmm.
and I was crying, remember?
I do remember that.
Um,
Yep. And I remember Zovaya running to me while I was in the other room, and he was like, "Mommy's bleeding, mommy's bleeding." And like, my life just flashed before my eyes. I didn't even know like what, like it was, everything ran through my
yeah, it
head.
was scary. It was scary. I don't know. I Then we went to the
Emergency room that night.
emergency room and like they ran all these tests and
There for hours
came back and said nothing was wrong with me.
during a time when our relationship
Is good.
is
Like
so good.
yeah,
Like our relationship is so good. It's like, nothing can stop us now. And then like the doctor says, "Oh, your kid gets sick," or there's a possible
yeah,
chance of you having a miscarriage. It's like
yeah.
every time you feel like you get this breath of fresh air,
Mhm.
here comes something that's suffocating.
Yeah, that's something to just like knock you off your game
Hmm.
almost like
Right when you get back on the horse, something knocks you off.
yeah. And then right after that, it was like we they were seeing me regularly because of the bleeding, and they ruled everything out, and there was nothing, no complications, right? And then they also detected that there was something in his spine, like saying that the baby wasn't going to be able to walk or crawl or do anything on his own. And it's funny that like as of this week, he's just standing
Standing up by
up
himself,
at his and like trying
which
slowly
is the
walking
grace of
around.
God because he's 9 months now. So, but not even 9 months ago, 10
Yeah,
months ago, the doctor was saying that he's not going to walk and he's
yeah.
actually about to walk early.
They wanted to
That
test my
is,
blood.
that is the grace of God right there.
Yeah. And then later in the pregnancy, toward the end of it, we experienced Zoe's seizure.
Yes.
Um,
That
and
was
that
around this
was,
time last year,
yeah,
like the beginning of 2024, maybe the end of 2023.
yeah.
It was around this time last year, right when we found out, like this was right after we found out that you almost had a miscarriage and
Mhm.
that the baby would have a spinal disease. Our eldest son has a seizure, but not just any seizure. This is the longest recorded seizure in the city of Corona.
Um,
Wasn't it like the longest recorded seizure? They said like this is the longest that they've had someone seize. Like they don't understand
yeah,
how he seized that long. And
yeah.
there's
It
well,
was
like
pretty long.
sees that long, and then which I mean I don't mean to jump ahead, but for them to then find nothing.
Yeah, because they were asking us like about his history, his medical history,
27 minutes.
if it runs in the family. It was just so sudden.
Seizures.
Like it was so sudden.
Yeah, no one in our family. This is like short little backstory. No one in our family had any seizures on my side or on her side. And she comes running to me out of the room saying those Zovia's not responding, come to him. And it's interesting how things work. During this time, our middle child Zaire, who is 2 now, he woke up early and I went to the living room uh, and I was teaching him how to pray. Even interesting at this same time, I was also doing a fast. So this is like day 2 of my fast. I'm really trying to get deeper.
You weren't eating.
I wasn't eating. That's what I'm saying. This is day 2 of my
Yeah.
fast. I'm really trying to get in tune with my spiritual. Like I'm doing this like in tune with my spirit. I'm fasting. I'm looking for more answers. And on day 2, praying with our middle child, you come out and you say that our oldest son has a seizure, and my whole world just like flipped. Like, I mean, I remember just like frantically running in there. He's foaming from the mouth, spit coming out, grabbing him, putting him in the water. Am I going too fast? Like, this is literally all like putting him in the shower because I didn't even think, tell you, can you call 911? Call 911. I'm in the cold water with him. He stops maybe for a little bit. Take him out of the cold water. We rush to the living room. I'm holding him. He's still seizing. I mean, now this is like 17 minutes has gone by.
Mhm.
I'm like literally counting in my head, like talking to God, holding him. He's still seizing. And I remember hearing a still voice, and I will always say this, and it was God saying, your son receives the Holy Spirit. And I just felt this sudden sense of relaxation and ease and this self of peace. Still, like my mind is like racing, but just something small inside me just felt this like sudden sense of peace and at ease. And I mean, 27 minutes, he seized.
Yeah.
They,
It was.
they came in, they bust down the door, like they stuck him with some medicine. He stopped for a little bit, then seized again. They had to up the dosage.
And it was just scary because like as a mom, like you either are in shambles or you tell yourself to hold yourself together. And I was holding myself together because there was just really no time for crying because you want to be attentive to
Hmm.
like what everyone is saying, like the paramedics, like you don't want to miss a detail, right? And
Hmm.
that's where I was at.
Are you shooting
And
shots because I kind of got teary?
no, I'm not shooting shots, but
I did. I will be completely honest with you. I got a little teary.
yeah, you were
I got.
crying.
It just nothing actually felt real.
Yeah,
Like I hadn't eaten in 2 3 days. Like, and if we're being honest about this whole situation, like that was also a time where I was really trying to get over the fact that I had a really bad drug problem.
yeah.
Like if we're being completely honest, so like I'm fasting, I'm trying to get more into my spirit. I'm coming off of having a really bad drug problem at the time, and my mind is not right. Like I'm thinking this is my punishment from God for all the things that I had done leading up to this moment. When in actuality, this was just God giving us a a scenario to become stronger.
Yeah, it's funny how you're given like every possible like outcome that plays in your head, like of what could happen, right?
Hmm.
And at the time, you felt like it was like punishment for doing this, and that,
Hmm.
or just aligned with what you were going through at the time. And then for me, it was more like, how could this be happening? And
Yeah,
it's like that realization of like, you need to
yeah,
pick yourself up because for whatever reason this is happening right now, it's part of you now, and you need to like carry yourself because
Yes.
it's not done yet, right?
Hmm.
And so that part is even scary because like you said, like the paramedics, they pushed what was it, like Keppra, right? Like,
Yeah.
or yeah, Keppra.
Yeah.
That's seizing medication.
Exactly.
So they pushed that a couple times on him, and it just wasn't working. They put him on the ambulance. They had me riding in the front seat, and
Mm.
all I could think was like, this could be like my last day,
Yeah.
like with him. And
Absolutely.
like at the time, like I wasn't as emotional as I am right now, but at the time, it's like, how do you go from like having a normal day to like thinking like this could be my last day with my child because you just don't you just don't think of that waking up like that you're gonna go through your day and this will be your last moments with him, and God was able to prepare you for that, and that wasn't what it was at all. So I'm in the ambulance and we get there and you're riding behind us, right, with
Hmm.
Zaire,
Hmm.
and we get to the hospital and immediately like they're trying to figure out why this 5-year-old was seething, and when we get to the hospital he's like sleeping,
Yeah.
and all I could do is like pray that this like isn't the end.
Yeah. That he wakes up.
Yeah, that this just I'm like demanding answers now, like
Yeah.
this better not be it. In our heads, we play out all these scenarios, but still praying, like,
Absolutely.
everybody moving fast around you and you're trying to get your feelings together and get your emotions together. And then they tell you stuff like, we gotta tap his spine, do a spinal tap. And I had to do I was holding him down.
Yeah.
Nurses are holding him down. The doctor was
Hmm.
taking this big ass needle, like I kid you not, it's like this big
Yeah.
and like this thick
Yeah.
into his spine to see if there's any fluid that'll detect why he had a seizure. And one, they couldn't do it.
Mm-mm. It
Um,
failed, which
for
is interesting because they even asked you, "Hey, can we do a spinal tap?" So they have to have your permission first
mhm,
before they go out and extract fluid because there could be some complications when doing it, right?
because
It's
he's young.
because he's young. It's like threading a needle. The fact that they even tried to do it and it didn't work, um, and then they say, "Okay, well, we're just gonna have to wait until we transfer him over to the children's hospital because remember, we're at a hospital that's not necessarily designated for kids.
We're in the emergency
We're in
room.
the emergency room."
They don't have the resources either to do all the tests that they needed.
which is um which is quite interesting to me because we've had our fair share of emergency rooms within the last couple of years,
Yeah.
and it is a blessing from God. We've always been able to walk out with our kids.
It's not a good feeling.
No, I mean, right after he had the seizure, they did the spinal tap, and I remember sitting there and I'm looking at him, and it was like a vision came to my head, almost like a flip book, and it's as if I saw my life from where it was right then with our son all the way, seeing him get married, like life with him. And then the second vision was a flip book still, but it was life without him. And I felt God tell me, would you still love life? Better yet, would you still love me if I took your son away? And it hit home for me heavy because it's like you're now really having these conversations with yourself. What would life look like if I did not have my child? Like if that was it, right? And God forbid, and these are tough conversations to have, but by him being in our life for that 5 years, if that was it, can I walk away from that situation and potentially heal? And there are people and there are parents, and I'm not downplaying anything. There are parents that actually do lose their child. Like I have friends,
Yeah.
I have friends that lose their child. That is something. Even just seeing our friends, that is something that's so hard to heal from and to like continue walking. And then you have to tell yourself, like, okay, like, well, how would this person want me to live out the rest of my life? But what if the person's so young they didn't even have an opinion for yourself, so you didn't even know how that person would want you to live the rest of your life? They barely had a life of their own. So it was so difficult sitting there visualizing, or just not even, I didn't even choose to visualize. It just got downloaded into me on what life would look like without my son or with my son. And that was so hard to swallow and to still be grateful and to still be thankful and be like, you know what? And Obviously, I didn't have to live it. I just said it, but I had to sit there and still be grateful and think to myself, okay, whether he's going to survive or not, I still have to be one here knowing who I am and who I'm created to be. And that's tough. This is my oldest son.
That's like the hardest pill to swallow, like you having to accept that things could change like this.
Blink of an eye.
Like, and you're not too far off from things could have been this way and things would have been different. Like, take me back to yesterday when things were just cool, you know, and like now you're sitting at the hospital praying that you get to go back home. And thankfully, that's what we did.
Yes.
But it doesn't take away from of how difficult it was to sit in the hospital and then to look people like to look strangers in the face like that you feel like you have to trust helping you because your son's life is on the line. So you need to trust that God's hand is all over it, and to be able to look at you and not argue and not be like, you know,
That was
cast all your frustrations out on each other because you don't know
yes.
what the fuck is going on
Yes.
with your son, and then having to accept that you don't know what's gonna happen, but are you going to be able to pull yourself together even if something does go wrong or if you lose your son? And
Yes.
that's another thing that's like that comes with being a parent, because you don't even expect that like side of you to where you are you enjoy the joys of being a parent and everything is all good until they're in the hospital, you know,
Yes.
for being sick, for having a seizure. You don't expect the weight of, you know, having to carry like, are they gonna die, like am I gonna lose my child today, and
Exactly.
to not turn away from God because of that, you know.
Which is
And
tough because the first thing you want to do is blame God. At least for some people, or you know, even for
some
myself.
people,
Some people, for myself, I wanted to blame myself at first. I wanted to almost kind of blame God because it's like, how come when I start this fast, I start sobering up, I start doing things right, this happens. And I had to really sit down and like process everything. That's usually when things happen, right? When you feel like it's kind of going good, and you know,
yeah,
you got your feet back underneath you. Right when you feel like it's going good, here comes something to knock you over. But that's just life. This is what builds soldiers. Remember we talked about it the other day. You said there was a meme. You were like, "I'm tired of."
take me off the strongest soldiers list.
Yeah,
God's strongest
yeah.
soldiers
Take me
list.
off of God's strongest soldiers list.
I've been on that list for a minute.
You know, but you know, pressure creates diamonds, and this is exactly where we're at in our relationship. Some relationship advice that I would give to any couple out there. The number one advice I would give to couples is to stay on each other's team in high pressure situations, because that will make or break you.
Yeah. We've had our fair share of hospitals and we've had our fair share of arguments in a hospital when somebody walks out. You know,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
it's hard to not argue because you're worried about your child and you're trying to get your feelings together.
Which, yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that
Which,
you're not going to argue.
yeah,
It's just pick and choose your battles at that point.
yeah,
Really pick and choose your battles. Like, you know, let's be real. If I really argue with her or him right now, is this even worth it?
no, because it's not gonna matter
It's not
if,
gonna matter.
you know,
It's not gonna matter at all. Especially when you have your child laying there is sick, or you're sick, whatever the case may be. High pressure
yeah,
situation. The last thing that you need is your partner on the opposite team.
yeah.
If anything, this is where you should join alliances, join forces even more.
Not even for, like, and just make it about your child, because
Exactly. Make it about your child.
those are the situations where it's not about nobody else but the baby.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um,
Shouldn't matter what you going through, what you were dealing with, what happened yesterday. The only thing that matters is that child in that situation. And